Welcome everyone. Tonight we are going to talk about cyber threat intelligence. And before I introduce myself and will ask you a lot of difficult fundamental questions, I wanted to say to you that I want to make this a fun talk, a feel-good talk that by the end of this talk you have this feeling, Daniel, you presented us with this checklist and all the things we can do to make our software more secure, to prepare ourselves against digital attack. Daniel, we got this, so you don't have to choke us to death. That's my goal. Let's begin with the ancient question to ChatGPT or not to ChatGPT. Given that when I thought about cyber threat intelligence, probably a lot of people will say, oh, let's use ChatGPT for it. So I thought, let's do it as well. Let's ask ChatGPT if we should listen to this talk or not. So I asked, hey, are developers responsible for the security of their code, or is the user responsible for using the application? Well, ChatGPT states, so well, developers are primarily responsible for the security of the code, while users also have a role to play in using applications securely. It's the responsibility of developers to build secure software and implement best practices for secure coding. Okay, but wait, ChatGPT, can like an AI like ChatGPT not patch, like automatic patch code based on cyber threat intelligence? A whole explanation on why a language model cannot do it, blah, 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 blah. And the final paragraph is, it's worth noting that while automated tools can be helpful in patching code, they are not to be replaced for thorough manual testing and code review. Developers should always carefully review any suggested patches or fixes and test them thoroughly before applying them in production code. Additionally, developers should stay up to date with the latest cyber threat intelligence and proactively apply patches and updates to their code to minimize the risk of cybersecurity breaches. So, you heard it from ChatGPT. I'm actually hopefully telling you something worth your time. So, who am I? My name is Daniel. In my previous job, I was a technical security instructor at the University of Applied Science and a researcher at the Center for Expertise Cybersecurity, where my research focused on secure by design architecture in AI, automated tooling, ethical hacking, malware reversing, and we also did a course on software reversing exploitation. A lot of fun. Now I went into industry. I'm a security consultant at BAM, big construction company, a lot of buildings in the Netherlands built by BAM. And one of my main interests in working for BAM is, are all these buildings secure against cyber attacks? Next to that, I'm also a lecturer at the Master of Cybersecurity Engineering Master, which in September, October, I will teach a course on security chaos engineering. On the side, I have a hobby. I'm part of the Challenge to Cyber community, where we organize hacking competitions for students and also prep a Dutch team to participate in the European Cybersecurity Challenge against the other member states in Europe. And I'm the co-founder of the Dutch Joint Cyber Range, a cloud platform which we can facilitate to educational institutes to enrich their education with technical challenges to improve their technical understanding and coding capabilities for the next generation. So a lot of fun, but the topic of today is cyber threat intelligence. So what is it? So I love the meme on the side, because that states to me that you can have data, but data is worthless if there's no connectivity between the data points, no relationship between the data. So you will get knowledge if you can combine these relationships. But you will only get intelligence, in some people's definition, if you can do something with this knowledge. So for me, intelligence is actionable knowledge, knowledge you can do something with. But then the question is, so what's cyber threat intelligence? Cyber threat intelligence is knowing where the attacker will hit you. And during this presentation, we will see a few tips on how you can get this actionable knowledge for your code as well. So let's start with a use case from the field I'm now working in, building management systems. So I thought, let's use a picture of a sick little girl in a hospital bed, jacked up with a lot of IT in her body to keep her healthy and happy. And we have all these building systems like vans, like heating, like light, like doors, like elevators, automated by automation level controllers, managed by workstations, servers, web browsers, mobile devices. So I've been told that you are all, well, target audience developers. So maybe you think my code doesn't reach, let's call her Little Lucy, doesn't reach the healthy and safety and happiness of Little Lucy, but I disagree, because your applications can end up in the workstations used to manage buildings, can end up in the configurations of servers used. So your code will actually have an effect on the physical world and people. So at the University of, well, the Hague University, we sometimes also ask students on, if your code was an airplane, would you fly in it? And a lot of students are like, no, I'm not going to fly my own code. Do you see the problem with this statement? Because actually we do have a lot of software in airplanes nowadays. And in 2019, a Boeing airplane crashed twice due to an unfixed bug in their software.
Which Boeing?
Huh?
That was because the plane was going down.
Yep. So that's why we do it. And I don't know if you agree with this statement, but I thought a lot about it, and I wanted to share it with you, that you as developers, you choose your software dependencies. Because you choose to use certain type of products while you code, you choose to build your applications on top of other applications, but these applications are also built on other applications, and you can make choices in it. And we saw a few years back with the Log4j vulnerability, that a lot of modern architecture was based on this single package that everybody was using, who wasn't maintained, who was updated, was probably managed by what's the meme called? Someone in Nebraska thanklessly maintaining it since 2003. Our software is based on all these little packages that no one takes this ownership for, but we depend the entirety of our code on it. And yeah, that's a choice. So sometimes when I speak to developers, they say, yeah, I'm only responsible for this top of the iceberg. But this top of the iceberg is based on all the choices you made below water. So please start thinking about this when you design code in the future. And I know this seems like an awful lot of work. So in my job, we used the picture when we start thinking about security roadmaps, and this picture came to mind. It's a long road getting security within an organization. So the majority of my job now is getting people to do security. Because the technology is there, it's just we need to apply it. And so luckily we don't have to walk this road alone. So because it's a long walk and you don't want to walk this alone. So let's take the first steps together. So step one for me in applying cyber threat intelligence to your application is to make it actionable, that you can actually do something with all the data out there. And for it to be actionable, you need someone who can take action. So it starts with application ownership. If there's no one within your organization that's allowed to patch something or remove something, you will have these boxes in your organization that everybody walks around, oh, why is it still there? Yeah, I want to remove it, but I don't know who owns it. I don't know if I throw it away from my basement, if something valuable was in it, if someone will be mad, if there was some business impact. So start first at making an inventory on who is responsible for what, who owns what, who can patch, who can remove. Because otherwise it doesn't matter if you want to patch, because you can't. So if you know this ownership and you know which application you want to, basically learn more about, you can look at a new terminology in the field. It's the software bill of materials. So did anyone of you already heard about this? So the software bill of material is this idea that when you, for example, eat a can of soup, you can look on the side of this can of soup what's in it. So when I eat this soup, when I use this soup, will I get sick? Will this has a negative effect on my body? Will I like it? So you can do the same thing as well with software, that you have the software bill of materials of your application, that you can tell everybody in a transparent manner, my application runs on these libraries, my application runs on these sub-packages. So that if, for example, one of those packages, for example, in the Log4j issue, people could figure out, oh, your application runs on this open source software package that is vulnerable. So if I use your application, I will get sick as well. This is relatively new, so
borrowed from the construction industry, right?
yeah. So I'm not mad at you that you don't know about it, but just try to memorize this picture. So try to think of your application as a can of soup on what's in it, can I check it, and if I eat it, will I get sicker? So ownership, software bill of materials. What can we do next? There are amazing hacker talks on conferences such as May Contain Hackers from last year in the Netherlands. And one of those talks was how to secure the software supply chain. Because we all use code from GitLab, we use PyPy packages, and do you really know what's in it? So if you take this package from the internet, do you know if it has install scripts? Do you know that it has native code running? Do you know that it talks to the network? So why would, for example, a text editor need to talk to the network if it's only used for you to edit text on your local machine? Why is that application has this functionality? So does it run shellcode? I hope not. Does it read environmental variables from your system? Does it gather telemetry from the environment where the device is in? And does it contain obfuscated code? So, for example, in Google App Store, a lot of malware has been inserted by obfuscating the code so that the static analysis of the code of Google did not find the obfuscated malware in the applications from the App Store. Okay, I know that this is pretty advanced to do if you get something from the internet, but we do this for a reason. So remember back the picture from the building management system with little Lucy sick in a hospital bed that we want to keep healthy and happy. We do this to reduce attack surface. And you can do that in two ways, patching and removing software. So 100% security is not possible, but we can keep our software and machines as clean as possible. At least if we can mitigate 20% of these high critical vulnerabilities from our application, we will have an 80% result. Because also digital attackers will try to find the easiest way in. And if we take away that easy path, the investment by a digital attacker will also increase. And at some point they will give up. Another thing you should do is removal of software, removal of these functionalities you just don't use. So I was looking for a picture online and I thought this picture was best. So if it doesn't spark joy, remove it. Even in your house, if you want to clean your house, if you want to clean your software, if it doesn't spark joy, throw it away. To get this working, these type of thoughts within your organization, it's best to just start talking about it, create awareness. And you can do this by talking about security news during coffee breaks. So if you have a coffee break, just ask someone else, hey, have you heard about this vulnerability? May this affect us? What can we do with it? Who's actually the owner of this application? I don't know. Just start talking about it. And eventually within your organization, you get to this awareness where you think, hey, we can actually do stuff with it. We can do actions on the data online. So let's have a look at the previous month, because we had a good month in cybersecurity. So I listen a lot to the SANS Internet Storm Centers podcast, which is a daily podcast on what's vulnerable in the world. So if we look at the bottom, beginning of this month, we had a vulnerability in Grandadam. Some developers use it, some developers don't. JSON web tokens. I think a lot of developers in web applications use. There was a vulnerability in it in the beginning of this month. Chrome dropping the green padlock thingy in their browsers because digital attackers can make these green padlocks as well. So having a green padlock in your website doesn't state anything about how secure the website is. And Google figures, well, if it doesn't state anything, you just drop it. Fake versions of ChatGPT, that was awesome. People getting tricked. The .zip domain got introduced. So now we have websites with, instead of .com, we have .zip. This is really funny. If you send someone an email with a .zip file, and when they click on it, they will be actually redirected to your website. This also created confusion in VirusTotal, because VirusTotal, what do you want me to do? Do you want to check the URL or the file? What do you want? .zip was owned by Google and released it. VirusTotal is owned by Google, so I don't know what Google is trying to do to itself. What else happened this month? Master key vulnerability in KeePass. For everybody who used KeePass, your master key has been leaked out and can be drawn for your computer if an attacker has access to it. PyPy, the Python, PyPy had so much vulnerable packages that PyPy put a stop on allowing new packages to be submitted until they get their stuff in order. So there was actually a delay on, no, please, no Python packages anymore, because we cannot check all the garbage that people submit. What else? Multiple vulnerabilities in Jenkins. PyPy suspending was lifted. Nissan car key replay attacks, always fun. Vulnerabilities in cameras, of course, but that's not all related to software development, perhaps. But have you patched the CVSS score 10 rating GitLab vulnerability? Not yet. Yeah, it's from, I think it was yesterday. And if you own your own GitLab environment, attackers can now do arbitrary read on every file on your system. Yeah, and there's a vulnerability in Open Authorization Expo, where attackers can bypass it. And of course, if you have these D-Link routers and management portal, there's also a vulnerability for that. This is last month.
I think Jira issued also a warning to all users.
Yeah. I think we had a good month. I'm looking forward what will happen the next month. And of course, I'm a big fan of the Sans Internet Stormcast. It's yes? Sorry.
Sorry, a little bit, yeah. I think that's all fixed.
Okay. I will do my best.
I can also drop it away and talk like this. Would that help?
I'm not sure how good it is with the sound, but let's see.
Okay. So, Sans Internet Stormcast, the Stormcast podcast. Listen to it basically every day. And I thought, if I'm going to talk to developers about cyber threat intelligence, what would you advise me? So, of course, on LinkedIn, I sent the owner of that podcast a message, Johannes Ulrich, and asked him, hey, Johannes, I'm an active listener to your podcast. What would you advise developers? I will advise developers to listen to it as well in my next talk on CT for developers. Any suggestions? Anything I should include? Much appreciation for your work. And he responded like fast. So that's nice. Thanks, Daniel. I think developers should follow bug bounty disclosure programs, because it can be useful for them to see what's out there. What are vulnerabilities in other type of packages. And I would also suggest developers, in particularly security champions, to work closely with the security operation teams, since the security operation teams often do not understand the application logs produced by your application. They only monitor, but they haven't built your application, so they don't understand it. And it's helpful for them to have a point of contact on the developer side to understand the logs. On the other hand, it's a good opportunity for developers to understand how their application may be attacked. The best threat intelligence is often the data you already collect internally. And many thanks, this is really helpful. All these steps, I know, it's a long road, but we can walk together. And I hope this is all intuitive for you. And why do we do this? Because our code has a direct effect on the physical world and on the healthiness and happiness of little Lucy. So please focus a bit more on cyber threat intelligence and figure out what actions you can take and knowing where the attacker will hit you so that your application, instead of a open application where everybody can hit you, you get a bit more of a security posture and make the world a bit more safe. So the key takeaways of this presentation is talk with others about cybersecurity news, define ownership of applications, have a look at software build materials, work together with your security champion, and reduce attack surface. And with this, I thank you for your attention.
All right.
Sorry about the mic.
Yes, thank you very much, Daniel. Can I have another round of applause for Daniel?
So, hello everyone. My name is Vink. I work at Siam.com. I'm a developer there. A little bit about my background. I studied artificial intelligence at the Leiden University before I worked at Siam.com, which is a pretty cool study, I think. Study artificial intelligence. It's definitely something I would recommend, especially at the end. I was doing some stuff with NASA and the ESA, and those people are really wild. They shoot lasers up in the earth, and they'll just shoot satellites up the earth, and they shoot lasers back down. It's really wild. And maybe it's a nice question. Who, if you like, picture the Netherlands in your head and draw a line a little bit below the Hague, who lives below the Hague? Nobody? One? See one? Nobody else? Then there are a bunch of other people here. Because if you're below the earth, center of the earth, they're like satellites who shoot actual lasers at your face sometimes. Not a lot. You shouldn't look up too much. But anyway, that's behind me now. Now I work at Siam.com. Maybe it's nice to say a little bit about some other personal stuff about me. I'm a huge Formula 1 fan, which you already saw a little bit today, which is nice because the Dutch Grand Prix is one of our clients. So there you see a picture of me at last year's Grand Prix. And we do a bunch of things there. So the company I work for, we've been here for quite some time. We founded just before the last millennium change. We're over 900 employees now, so kind of few. And we do a bunch of things. We are a payment service provider, and we do a lot of SMS and communication. But I personally work at the ticketing department. So we do everything with sending tickets. So we have an application that lets our clients sell tickets to their customers for festivals. And what we try to do is we try to focus on all the touch points that Ticketseller has with their customers. And we try to facilitate, to give their clients an awesome user experience. But today, I wanted to talk about command and query responsibility segregation, or CQRS for short, which is an architectural design pattern that's now becoming, I think, increasingly popular in the last decade. We personally use it at Siam.com, which I think that's why I feel like entitled that I can talk about it, but who knows. So let's start with some basic definition, because I think that's not necessarily obvious. What we think of as a command is a write operation in an application. So that's that. And then what a query is just a read operation. And those are the basic concepts of what I'm going to talk about today. And then what a domain model is, if you don't know what a domain model is, that's not that or something. It's just your data, basically, in your application. And you can think of it like that. So in preparation of this presentation, I set out to collect some quotes of some people at my company and known people in the field. And this is a quote from my own lead developer. He says, with CQRS, you can get quick reads. When reading is separated from writing part by design, there are a lot of opportunities to optimize it. And I feel like that's the essence for me as well a little bit with CQRS, that architectural design pattern. If you use it in your day-to-day business and day-to-day programming, you start to notice that there are a lot of opportunities where you can really optimize your code and really make your application go faster. And then I will go over some examples later in this presentation, and I hope to give you a little bit of a feeling about how it works. Then another quote from Greg Young, which I think is one of the leading advocates of CQRS and event sourcing. He says, just like in real life, in code, a feature triggers by an action, in this case a command, that results in a sequence of events that might or might not cause side effects. So very inspiring quote, I think, by him. And I think what CQRS is really allowed for me also, it's also to create a stepping stone for if you want to create an event-driven architecture, CQRS is really a nice way to extend that. And then last but not least, a quote by Katie, my friend. She says, well, you take your commands and your queries and you separate them so they're not together. You keep them away from each other, seriously. Which I think is quite funny when she said it to me when I asked what CQRS is about for you. But she's not wrong. Actually, what is really with this thing, with this architectural design pattern, is that if you talk code-wise, you really need to separate them into separate models in order to get this architectural pattern going for you. But today I wanted to give you kind of an example with a problem, and then what I wanted to do is build up a small application together and just see like what are the opportunities that CQRS gives you. So I was thinking about we could create an e-commerce platform together. So let's say you own an e-commerce platform. Well, what do you need for that? You probably need products, right? That's what you are going to sell. And then it might also be nice if you have some reviews that go with that, that product. So a data structure may look something like this. You have a product that has a name and a price, and then you have some reviews. They have title, maybe a content, and a score. And all these reviews stay together, they form an average rating of a product. And that's a little bit where the tricky part comes, right? Because how you can calculate them if you want to store them in a relational database separately, then this becomes kind of a problem. And not my piece of code, in PHP, I know, I'm sorry, might look like this. You fetch all your products, you fetch all your reviews, and then how do you calculate the average rating? Well, you might look over it one by one, sum them up, and you calculate the average, and then you return the product, right? But this doesn't really seem scalable, right? Because what if you have 50,000 reviews? Then this will be an expensive loop, right? But maybe it's nice to ask you a question. Who, as a junior developer, produced a code like this? In show of hands? I definitely did. Yeah. So let's see how we optimize it. Maybe we can write an SQL query for it, right? Then an updated piece of code might look like this. You just, you select your product with your reviews, you join the reviews, and then you do the average. There. And it's definitely true that the database will do it a lot faster, right? But did we really solve the problem, or did we just shift our problem to the database server? Because what if there's 1 million reviews? Then this still will be an expensive join, and it still needs to look over all the products. So it seems a little bit that we have a vicious problem on our hands. But what I want to do is look together with you guys and see how CQRS might be able to solve it. So let's draw it in a diagram. And so here's the most basic form of CQRS. And you take your path of code, and if you want to add a review, for example, you take that path below. And then when somebody requests a product with your review, with your reviews, you take the other part of the program, right? And by the way, that's the database. Nice picture there. So what we might be able to do there in the system is to introduce a cache. And that will work very well for our products, right? Because every user probably see the same product with the same reviews. And then what you can just do is let one of them calculate this, do the expensive calculation, cache it, and then it can be requested very fast. And that's really nice, right? So that's already one advantage, I think, where if you really separate the two paths in your application, then you can optimize them separately. And that's really nice. But what if there's a lot of user customization? Then this will not really work, right? Because then every user would have their own cache, and every user still needs to calculate themselves. So what if we take a little bit of a different approach and make what we call a projection? So then your application might look a little bit like this. Then every time a review is created, that's below there. Oh wait, I've started this review. If you add a review, you store it nicely in your database, but you store it in what we call a projection. So what it concretely would look like, you just have an extra line in your code that says whenever I store a review in my database, I also add a number to my projection. For example, in the case of reviews, you can just take your review and sum them up, and you also keep track of how many ratings you have. And then what you do, whenever you want to read it, now you don't ask for all the reviews, but you just ask for those two numbers, and that you can do pretty fast. And whenever the next review comes in, you update the number on the fly, and then you never need to do that extensively. So that's, I think, one of the big advantages to optimize the read side of your command and query of your application. And so that's how you do it, like this. I think one of the main advantages, of course, CQRS, it's command and query responsibility segregation. So this is really about how you optimize the query side of your application, but you can also optimize the command side of your application. And maybe, whenever you're building an application, usually there's a lot of things going on, right? And I remember a story of one of our sales guys. He was trying to sell our system to a festival. And the guy from the festival, he was kind of downplaying him. He was saying like, a ticketing solution, how hard can it be to make that? You just generate a barcode and you scan it at the door. Why does the fee need to be so high? On which our salesperson replied, but yeah, a festival, how hard can that be? You just put up some fences, I hire a DJ, and you have a festival. Why does that need to be €100 for a day, right? So he actually landed the sale, so props up to him. But what I want you to take away from it is that whenever you have an application, usually there are a lot of things going on that you don't really know from upfront. For example, in our e-commerce case, what if a sale happens? Probably a lot of people in your company need to know about it, right? Like the finance department may need to know about how much money coming, a sales directive may need to know how much of a certain product is sold, and then a warehouse worker probably needs to be informed about how many that he needs to pack it for delivery. So if we all would have to do that in the same call, that might be, and we might also run into performance issues, right? Luckily, CQRS also provides a solution for that, and I'm going to show you it. What if we introduced a command bus? And a command bus is kind of a vague concept, but it's just, in our case, still, it's just a database, which you temporarily store your actions to be picked up later in an asynchronous manner. So it doesn't even have to be in the same call. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. You can also just let the command bus know that a certain action needs to happen. For example, in the case of the warehouse, let's say a ticket has been solved, you can put it on the command bus, and then another application in your environment can pick that command up and do all the database manipulations that then need to happen for that action. But you can store actions that don't actually do anything. You can store them pretty fast, right? Because yeah, it doesn't do anything. So that's how you can optimize there. And in the meantime, you can already inform the front end that that action already has happened. For example, if you want to, let's say you want to delete the product, then you can just put the delete button. It will be stored on the command bus, and already the front end will be notified that the product has been deleted. But in the real world, it might still be on the command bus to be picked up later. So that's how you can optimize it there. But now we'll get to the fun part, because a command bus can let you do a lot of other things as well. One of the things is, for example, what if we store it on a command bus to be picked up later, already notify the front end that the action has happened, but oh no, we created a bug here. Then the action will not actually be performed, but we did let the front end know that it was performed. That's kind of problematic, right? But a way to solve it is to introduce a failed message bus. That's just a place where we can store every message, every command, every action that we perform, but that's failed, and we'll get a notification, maybe even. And then we as developers, we get to look at that failed command and see, maybe we have made a mistake. We fix the bug and we rerun the command and act like nothing ever happened. And then hopefully the customer is happy because he didn't get to experience the bug, and hopefully we are happy because we actually get to know what errors were created in our application and we get to fix them. So that's a way how you really get to reduce the potential bug surface of your potential failure surface of your application by allowing you this. But there are some problems with it, unfortunately. One of the problems is a racing condition. It's kind of a difficult word. It's not actually that difficult to explain. It's whenever you have an action that can only be performed once, but usually that's very fast. So, for example, in our e-commerce platform example, what we can say is, let's say every user in our platform can only submit one review. That's a fair thing to think, right? But what if we store it in the command bus? Or how might we be able to do that? Well, let's say whenever a request comes in, we check, does the user already have a review? If yes, we reject it. If no, then we'll store it, right? It's on the command bus to be picked up later. But now the user clicks the button very fast, and then it comes there again, checks the database. It's not yet stored because it's still on the command bus, not yet picked up. And then we say, this user doesn't have a review yet, so we let it pass. And then you will get something like this. It gets there, gets checked, it gets an okay because the command did not yet finish. And then you'll get two messages in the command bus that says, hey, let's add a review for the user. And then what you will end up with is actually the user has two reviews there, which is problematic, but the product owner will probably be a little bit mad at you if you've done this. But luckily, you know the solution because actually it's quite simple. We'll just move the check to the other side of the command bus, and that's it. And with a difficult word, you call that idempotency. So look it up, and that's the way to go. Another way to solve it is by event sourcing, but I think that's maybe a little bit of a topic for another talk. But it's very, very cool to look that up. Another extension that I wanted to talk with you about is using events. It's not called CQERS, so it's not really part of CQRS, but I think it's CQRS is a nice stepping stone to create an event-driven architecture. So that's why I want to talk about it. So I already did talk with you a little bit about how you can make it so that you can create projections. But what if we want another projection? Let's say if a review gets added, also some statistics table needs to be updated. Then, yeah, what we will do, we'll create another line on that same controller, for example. Then, yeah, you can get it up to where your handlers are a little bit messy. So what you can also do is you dispatch an event, and you just create event listeners to that event, and then you effectively decouple it, because what you can do is at your projection just listen for that review edit event, and then update these two values there. And what's also nice, if you want to take microservices and you kind of let your event listeners be an entry point for your application, then you can, for example, take this picture, wrap it, introduce an event bus, and then all your microservices, or if you want to do single component, you could do it components. You can wrap that in a nice application, and then when the product gets sold, you can listen there on all your microservices and store them in there as well. So that's a little bit how CQRS fits into the bigger picture of creating applications with microservices, which is really nice, I think. So what are the key takeaways? You can get quick reads if you make projections, and you can calculate these projections, these caches of what you want to fetch on the fly, and you don't have to recalculate them. Yeah, you can leverage consistency. So whenever one of the microservices fails, yeah, it will end up in the failed message queue, and then you can redo it, retry that message whenever you fill the bug. You can improve scalability just by handling your load on the message queue. Increase fault tolerance, because now the front end doesn't even know about the bug that happened. You will just solve it later. But you might trade it off with some latency, because whenever an action has been confirmed, it might not yet really happen, might be still on the command list. So yeah, that was my presentation about CQRS. I don't know, are there any questions?
Yeah. When you mentioned projection, is it a summary of your data, or is it an exact copy of your data?
It's in the case of the projection where I first talked about, it's really a summary of your data, and that's where it's meant to be for. If you talk a little bit about the bigger picture and not do it with other microservices, then usually what happens is there will be in your microservice a copy of the data stored. Yeah.
So there is a trade-off that will happen. I will leverage
Exactly.
speed, but it's on the expense of the memory.
Yeah.
So I need to pay more for the memory.
Yeah, it's usually trade-offs. And there's no silver bullet, of course, in software development. So you trade off a little bit your latency with these are nice things that you might be able to do. Other questions?
Does the commanders work almost equivalent to MTTT? So that the pattern was published quite better.
Yeah, definitely. Usually mature command based software is like a Reddit MQ, Kafka, or Google PubSub. So these pieces of software, it doesn't have to be, right? It can also be just synchronous. But if you want to do it asynchronous, it's really good to use these PubSub things, because then actually what you can do is just your workers, they can subscribe to certain topics, certain commands. And then, for example, if you have a command that you expect to be always very heavy on evening, you can kind of predict for that and spin up a lot more containers to handle those commands at that time. And then you can handle your load that way. Yeah, great question. Any more questions? Okay, then I want to thank you for your time.
All right, everyone, I will now give Andrey the mic, and he will teach you stuff about ChatGPT in a depth workflow. Can I have a round of applause?
So it seems we have a busy agenda today, but I hope my slides takes much less than 30 minutes, and I guess you can treat my presentation as an entertainment pause between serious topics. My name is Andrey Zakharov, and I'm the part of Competa since 2017. Interesting fact is that in, I think, 2018, I already gave a presentation about artificial intelligence, but in a more theoretical and a bit philosophical way. The main point was is that we are not sure where the development of AI is going, and we're not really in control. But after 5 years, it's more transparent. These days, we get a bunch of tools that we can use for free to process different inputs and outputs, such as text to text, text to image, image to video, etc. So that gets some designers and animators really stressed, but what about programmers? I think we all see clickbait articles about how AI will kill tech jobs in 5 years, but I get different impressions so far. And question like, would ChatGPT kill programmer job? Sounds more like did Photoshop kill designers? So we know that it didn't. But it made some skills and practices obsolete, so as ChatGPT does. One of the ways how you can think about ChatGPT is like kind of a picture that this is a new way of Googling in some way, and you know that this is really important to compose a proper search query to get relevant results in Google. It's like if you look at how a junior developer and senior developer are Googling, they get different results just because they make different query. So ChatGPT introduces kind of a new higher abstraction level of making those queries. So we can talk to the AI in the human language and get processed data in the same human language. And this is kind of the same transition of abstraction levels as we got in programming languages. So transition from low-level languages like assembler to the C. Well, still programmers exist. In the same way, we have a GitHub Copilot, which is not a pilot, so this is still an assistant. Looks like we still need that extra layer between chair and computer to generate problems and prompts. So ChatGPT as well is not really a programmer itself, but it can do much more than anything that we had so far. So I want to show you how it can help you today in your daily work. This is basically an access to the tool, and I'll switch to the actual interface. I think most of you are already familiar with that. You just start a new conversation with ChatGPT and get it in your history. So I have some examples already here. So first example is I call explain what this code does. Let's see which one is that. Yeah. So I just picked up random, very, very old code that I really don't remember what it does anymore. And I asked ChatGPT to act as a JavaScript developer. This is one of the tricks of using ChatGPT is setting that in a certain context. So we asked ChatGPT to act as a certain person or a certain role. Well, that it parses it and gives me some bullet points. In some way, it doesn't really help me because I still need to read a lot of text, but at least it translates into something better. So, for example, a programmer with less experience can understand that. That's an example. That's really unreadable, like almost kind of obfuscated. What's happening here is decoding and encoding strings. The GPT understands it well. Give an explanation to me.
Andrey, can you zoom in?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Well, sounds very reasonable until you get into that, but so far so good. Next example kind of suggests improvement version. So here, what I have is the code that I wrote quite recently. The purpose of that is to return an object of options for different cookie names. So a bunch of functions, a bunch of constants, functions. The thing that I didn't like about it is that I need to, the way that I created it is that I have an object where each property is the key is the cookie name, and it should return the config object. So I wasn't sure if it's really like the best solution for the scalability. So I asked ChatGPT, in a way, act as a senior JavaScript developer. I want you to review a piece of code, suggest improved version of it. Should be maintainable and clean. Here I'm using another trick because ChatGPT can accept a limited amount of characters. It's around 4,000. As well as can process, can return the same amount of characters in response. So what we can do here is that if we have really a large piece of code or several pieces of content, we can make a deal with ChatGPT and say like, I'm gonna give you this code in parts. So when I say stop, then it means that I'm finished. Here I'm just sending my code in a separate message. So I say ready when you're ready to read the code. So I did that. And it gives me the improved version of the code right away. It's actually a second generation. So the first one I think was interrupted. So it gives me the code, and next to that it gives me the list of improvements. So I can get really lazy. Renamed constants, changed one function, modified the regular expression, simplified logic, logic consistent, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but I was really curious, like, that doesn't do the job good. So I took my original code and compared it with a code that ChatGPT generated. So what I did basically just changed my way of formatting constants into another one. I think that's really opinionated. Another function was, I guess, also. Do that. So function that was just a one-liner to generate JavaScript date from the amount of milliseconds. Basically just split it up, I guess, for the better readability. Here it did a nice thing that I didn't really ask. So it said in that list of improvements that I changed the regular expression for you. Well, it wasn't really that I wanted, because in my case, I really have domains with the additional S for this www subdomain. So with that improvement, it actually breaks my business requirements. So thanks ChatGPT. Here, this function, I actually just took it as is from legacy code, because I didn't understand it, so I didn't really touch it. But here, ChatGPT made some improvements for me. I guess it's only about unit testing to make sure that it's really working fine. And for the line, yeah, again, rewriting everything into another case. It also mentioned that I fixed one bug for you. So here I'm accessing the key of that object, and in my case it was always a function, but ChatGPT made an improvement and changed it to have it optionally either an object or a function that returns an object. So for his code, sure, it introduces the bug and it fixes it, so it checks like, do I have a function that I can call that? Otherwise, I just return the object. And that's it. So in general, I wouldn't say that there are like so many improvements, but yeah, anyway, it's interesting to try out to make sure that the code is nice. Anyway, it didn't really improve the thing that I wanted to check, but that also depends on the prompt. Like probably if I would ask explicitly about my problem, then ChatGPT will focus on this thing exactly. So next example is about writing unit tests. So basically the same piece of code that we already saw, and I just say cover following piece of code with unit tests. Also notice that actually wrapping my code into this markdown piece, and ChatGPT responds with the same. But in his case, it's actually formatted. So I didn't specify anything. It picked up the jest by default and gave me 3 tests in total. It explains what it does. Write 3 test cases. Check. You can run this test using a testing framework to verify the correctness of the code and ensure that it behaves as expected. That is really needed. For some reason, I don't have the first version of unit test that it did generate, but it was really funny because that's where I noticed that the ChatGPT hallucinating. I'll talk a little bit more about it further. But basically, it was writing the unit tests without respect to my code. So it was like checking different cases and expecting that it will return same config object. So I really had to clean up after that. Another thing that I don't like about this solution is that for cookie options, I return a different expiration date, but here just covered with expect any date, which is not precisely that I made in my unit test. So I'm checking like that for different cookies, it's only this amount of time to be expired. So that was also lazy in some way. Okay. But talking about tests, it's not only about unit tests. We can think about any kind of test, so also ETL, any framework, Cypress, Playwright. So I think it really improves the workflow because usually we're just too lazy to write unit tests or write the full pack of unit tests, and ChatGPT can generate as many as you want. And most of it really usually just a boilerplate that we're lazy to type. And on the same note, about rewriting different. So let's say language A, something is written in language A, and we want to translate it to another language for a reason like, I don't know, we're migrating the project, or something become obsolete, like framework, like Jasmine, and we want to write it to Jest. Here, for the example, I made a really weird combination, so I asked to write Ruby into PHP, and it does. And it's just one CRUD controller written in PHP. Looks like Laravel, but I'm not sure. And it says that I'll take care that it's like a kind of direct translation, and the actual implementation may vary. One of the things here, for example, is that redirect to, I think that was a method in Ruby on Rails, and ChatGPT didn't find anything in PHP, but simply just mentioned the same function. Or if I would run this code, it wouldn't run because redirect to is not a PHP function. I have to write it by myself. But still, again, nice if I have a large migration task and I need to rewrite everything in some new language or framework. I can ask ChatGPT to help me do it. And maybe advanced, but not a task. Not related to the code, but recently I also had a task to prepare a migration plan. So we need to migrate MongoDB to Azure Cosmos DB, and we also need to define the rollback plan. So if something goes wrong on the Cosmos DB, how can we switch back to MongoDB? Also taking into consideration that this is the live application under high load, and we cannot allow any downtime. So simply dumping the database is not a solution. I did study this topic before asking ChatGPT. After I was completely lost, then I decided to approach that. So basically what I got as an answer is kind of a compiled document of everything that I read from Azure documentation and etc. And in the end, it says, in case you need to migrate back, you can follow a similar process in reverse. That was unfortunately wrong, because I knew that it's not possible with Azure tools. So I'm correcting him. You made a mistake. Doesn't support. So how would you migrate? And then it's apologizing. Yeah, it doesn't support. So you can use the following approach then. Export data, import data, real-time data application, replication, and that's where I got my clue. So just like one gem to this whole paragraph of text is change feed feature. I didn't know about that, so then I googled about that one, and that gave me an insight how to implement that. But yeah, overall, it summarized the same as same conclusion as I had from my manual research, that it involves manual effort, doesn't offer out-of-the-box solution. However, one message ago was completely sure that it can. But yeah.
It seems very confident about one.
Yeah, so that's again the hallucination effect. So, in conclusion, what kind of current limitations we have? We have this limit on input-output size that we can solve with some workarounds. It has knowledge base up to September 2021. That's when they stopped learning it. And if you ask about something like very recent, then it will tell that I don't know. But still, again, in the conversation itself, you can feed it with the necessary information that you have. This hallucinations effect That's where AI generates the output that it looks very, very confident, but if you try to validate that, then you realize that it's actually completely wrong. And for example, in tools where we generate images or videos for the entertainment purpose, that's probably even like additional cool side effect. But as a programmers, we expect like the 100% accuracy, and it's not the case. So that requires validation of the output. And again, yeah, we still need that man in the middle, the human that's going to work with the AI and validates this output. So it improves in the new versions. I'm using the free version, 3.5, I guess, and we already have a paid version 4. But still, like as a fact, we cannot trust neural network output on the same level as we do for computers, or let's say on the less level of trust. As we never trust it completely. That's it. Question?
Yeah.
It
gave a suggestion that was wrong. So you told ChatGPT that, well, this is wrong and you cannot do that. What would happen if it actually gave a correct suggestion and we then tell that it's wrong? Well, then say like, oh, sorry, I'm mistaken, and it will come up with a different suggestion.
Yeah, exactly. So it always tries to satisfy the user, because, for example, if you give the wrong prompt, like, please tell me how dinosaurs invented the computers, it will give you that very sure text about all details how it did happen. However, we know that it didn't.
It happily bullshit.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Samsung not wanting their developers putting the secret source code of their Samsung applications in ChatGPT?
It's a great idea.
Putting or not putting?
Not put in.
Not putting. Well,
so the developers of Samsung put their code in ChatGPT to optimize it of a product that was not on market yet.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing that I also didn't mention. So one of the some of the code that you saw is a production one, but I minimized it as much as possible, so it doesn't contain anything that could give a clue that it's related to a certain product or something. So yeah, of course I think that's the rule of thumb that we don't expose any personal data or brand data.
You're submitting it to be retrained now.
Hmm?
You're submitting the question you ask is going to be retrained now.
Retrain, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be retrained now.
When you actually have the paid version, you can have the possibility to turn off that it uses your input as learning data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but still, I think it's a bad idea, because well, if you work in a big company, you sign kind of NDA or all that stuff. So by any circumstances, you should not put your production code in.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Is ChatGPT more proficient in some programming language others? Did you note any difference? If you show some adjacent on PHP, you know whether it's, for example, what I hear is especially in Python or something?
Yeah, I didn't try Python, but yeah, JavaScript skills were confident for me. Yeah, I mean, in general, Ruby PHP also familiar to me. Yeah, because in fact, ChatGPT itself is completely dumb, but it depends on the data it's trained on. Yeah. So maybe they gave more articles about Python. I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys, it's time for Vince and the social hack experience.
So a few weeks back, Debbie asked me to stand here and tell something about my work, experience, all that kind of stuff. And I thought by myself, like, oh, I could be here and social and tell everybody something about social hacking and everything, or I could be at home playing the new Zelda game. I could do what I wanted, but still, I'm standing here, I'm doing the talk. No. I'm just kidding. I'm happy to be here, and I would like to tell you something about social engineering, actually. I'm Vince Grandadam. I work for a company called Brooklyn Partners, and there I'm a social ethical hacker, which means that I try to, well, quote unquote, seduce people to do A, even if they know that their normal process should be doing B. That means I do mystery guest attacks or phishing attacks, and I also coordinate programs for companies, mostly municipalities in the Netherlands, to be a bit better on the human side if it comes to cybersecurity or information security and privacy. If you have any questions after today or one-on-one questions, add me on LinkedIn. Always good to expand your network, right? For today, I want to talk with you about what is social hacking. How do you create a hack? How do hackers do that? How does social hacking work? And which psychology is used in social hacking? I told you a bit about myself now. I told you what I'm gonna tell you, but I'm also curious, has any of you ever been hacked? Well, not necessarily successfully, but I see someone raising their hand very enthusiastically. What happened?
Well, there got some malware on my computer, and it had every single password that I had saved. So there was a lot of work in fixing that.
And do you know how the malware got on your computer?
Probably some torrent that I got.
Some files, of course. Any other? Did you manage to get rid of it, or did you have to reset everything? And
I think I got rid of it, but to this day I don't save passwords on the computer until I have done a fresh installation. So.
Is that different from binding on your computer as well?
Yeah. Anybody else? I see Daniel raising his hand very enthusiastically, but I don't want to let him talk.
Okay.
So.
I think my brother got one of those police viruses once.
Oh yeah, I've had the
like
same.
pay us $1,000 right now, or we're gonna like blow your PC up or stuff.
And of course, and I think everybody of you ever in their spam folder or something got this Nigerian prince who inherited you $1 million. Well, I'm rich by now, but you never believe.
Even phone calls.
Sorry?
Even phone calls.
Even phone calls, yeah, of course. It can be in many different forms. And I heard two very technical hacks. Today I'm talking more about the social part. So how do you as a person get influenced into maybe giving away information that you shouldn't, or actually taking it a step further. I just said, like, I do mystery guest attacks, which means I go into a company unannounced. I say that I'm, for example, still a student and doing research, and then I ask, would you give me a card so I can get in, or can you open? It actually happened last time. Can you open the server room for me so I can have a look? So I was standing in the server room, and the person just opened it, walked by. I could go in and had access to the whole server room. Well, with a bit of finesse and a bit of social engineering, you can get quite far, unfortunately. Do any of you, and I know it's in Dutch, I'm sorry, I prepared the presentation in Dutch, then Daniel started talking, and I remembered that I had to do it in English. So these are all in Dutch, but do any of you know any of these news outlines? Yeah?
Definitely on with some of the University of Maastricht, of course.
What happened at the University of Maastricht?
Ransomware attack, and data was that they couldn't access their data anymore, I think.
Exactly, there was a ransomware attack. Do you know how it started?
Probably some phishing.
Yeah, exactly. It started, before the attack was active, it started a few months before that, where people got a phishing email and a few people actually put their information in, and they recognized it was a phishing email, but they didn't report it, and they never reported it. So the hackers had a free game in their systems for 3 months until they actually put the ransomware on, and that's how they got inside. Any other headlines that you recognize? Yeah?
I recognize the movie theater one.
The movie theater one, the Pathé one.
Yeah, where, if I remember correctly, they basically called them up and said like, hey, we're opening up a new theater, we need a down payment of about this amount. And then it's like, okay, here it is, and then they basically just got transferred a whole lot of money.
Yes, and do you know who sent the email like, hey, we're from your company and we want this money to open a new establishment? Do you know who it was?
I don't know who it was. I know that they sent it to like the big chief.
Exactly, they sent it to the CEO, and even the CEO fell for it and just transferred the money. So big money we're talking about. Another funny one is the Donald Trump one, where a comedian actually called people, and that's what they do in hacks. It's the next slide. He called people from the White House, and every time he collected a bit of information, and then called the next person, and called the next person. And eventually he got on a phone call with Donald Trump when he was president, just by social engineering his way through to the top. So all these hacks, what they all have in common is that it is a human error, and it can happen to anybody. I'm not here to scare everybody or anybody. I'm just here to, in Dutch we say, make you trust your belly, your onderbuikgevoel. And this is what I just said. So a good hack or a good hacker has a cyclist where they gather information, and with that information they gather more information until, for example, they know what new project is playing. For example, they're implementing SharePoint into the company. This person is in the lead, and then with that information, if you have all this information, you for example, make a phishing mail of SharePoint. Hey, this is the new SharePoint. Click here, enter your current login information, and we will activate your account in the next 24 hours. I have done this phishing email to a company of 2,000 employees. Can you guess how many actually fell for it?
5%.
How much? Half? 50%? 20%. Okay. Yeah?
90%.
No, unfortunately not. But it was 65% actually clicked on the link, and 45% actually filled in their current username and password. Normally in a hack, only one person is enough, so this is a lot. The build-up of a hack, it's quite easy. You have a hacker, he has a certain goal and a target, he uses different medium to get there, in which he uses different techniques. And the last one is which psychology he uses to, or she, doesn't matter, which psychology they use to make you fill in your information. First, we have the hackers. It could be anybody, you, me. We have script kiddies who do it for fun, to show their skills, just individuals. You have hack groups, anonymous, or also countries. And of course, the good guys. I would consider myself a good guy. I don't do this illegally, but I do it to make the world a safer place. What would be a goal of a hacker?
Money.
Money, yes. Other goals? Information, yeah.
Influence.
Influence. Okay, yeah. Sorry?
Trolling.
Trolling, yeah, for sure. You have it as well. There are so many. So reputational damage we haven't talked about. Money, of course. Disturbances. Could be so much. Spying, activism, also political points. And a target, yeah, it could be anybody. Individuals, companies. It could be you, it could be me. And then we have the medium. What would be the medium? How would social hackers, how would normal hackers try to hack you?
Exploit your vulnerability.
calling? Yeah? Email? Okay.
Team viewer.
Sorry?
Team viewer.
Team viewer, yeah, that's already further in. Don't do that.
SMS.
SMS, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Gift cards.
Yeah.
Buy gift cards or something. Well, that's over the phone, I guess.
Mostly over the phone. But you forget one important one, and that's face to face. Could be. I talked about mystery guest attacks, where walking into your company, trying to get access, trying to get things you shouldn't be having. And one important one
It's not hacking anymore. That's being more of a con man or something, right?
Is it? It's still a social engineer. It's still a social ethical hacker. Sorry. So and with this information, I was talking. There are two of my old teachers over there, and I used to do this semester where we did a hack, where we had to do social engineering as well. And I cannot specify where, but there was a very secured company where we wanted to get in, and in the end we managed to get an administrator account to this whole company, and it was huge. How we did this was get inside in a secured area, said we needed a computer. We had like a fake shirt, a fake badge that we all made up. We said we needed a computer, and with the USB we managed to, I'm not sure because I didn't write it, but I think, well, with an USB plug into the computer, we managed to be able to get an administrative account. So part of it was the social engineering, calling, oh, we're going, or having a shirt saying we're from this company. The other big thing is social media. It happens a lot, even on LinkedIn, where a recruiter sends you a video with a link, click on it, and they will tell you how much they like you, and then actually the link is false. Stuff like that. The techniques, I would say there are 4 big ones. Phishing, I don't need to tell you what phishing is. Impersonation, so like I said, having a shirt on and act like I'm somebody else. Baiting and quid pro quo, thank you, mouthful. It's actually, I give you something and you give me something in return. Baiting is more on the product side. For example, I used to drop an USB and somebody would pick it up and plug it into your computer. I don't think anybody would do that now, but it happened a lot. And quid pro quo is more about a service. For example, the people that call you from Microsoft saying, hey, I'm here to help, and in the end you have a TeamViewer I heard on, and they managed to get your credentials. And the last one, tailgating, walking behind somebody to get access to the company. This almost always works, unfortunately. Then last we have the persuasion principles, which there are 7 for which we use, and they're from Cialdini. And I want to talk to you about those. First is liking, sympathy, actually, having other people like you, or feeling sad for another person, so you would walk the extra mile. One of the best ways to get access is to just give a compliment. Hey, what a nice day outside, you're wearing a nice dress. Oh yeah, I'm also working here. Can you open the door? I forgot my car. It works. Scarcity. What would scarcity be?
Time scarcity. You have to do this within a limited amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. So your password will expire in 1 day. And there's another kind. Anybody?
Scarcity of time. Oh no,
That's
not the time. The like on Booking.com, like, oh, there are only 2 left.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you. Exactly. So scarcity of time. So there are only so many rooms left. These persuasion principles are not only used in hacking, they're used in your everyday life. You probably also do them subconsciously, but if you start to recognize these, they're really used in commercials and everything. If somebody tries to sell you something, these are the things they use. So we have scarcity, authority. Funny enough, I have a picture of authority. It's my colleague Koen would say, "Oh, don't show us private information," but you can find this on our website, so don't worry. And we disguise ourselves as the firefighters to do a check. And here as well, we have a cool spy glasses, and we film everything during our break-ins. We managed to get into the server room, which was very fun. I have another question for you. Who is the biggest authority of the Netherlands? Who would you always open the door for? Okay, yeah.
I'm not Dutch.
Fair enough. But not everybody would open the door for the king. Yesterday I heard somebody say the police, but it's also not the police.
Prime Minister?
No.
Don't start with
But you don't even have a house for a door, so it's okay.
It's a guy with a big beard who comes at the end of the year. Yes, Sinterklaas. If I would come dressed up to a big company as Sinterklaas with kruidnoten and other snacks, they would just open the door and say, "Okay, come in, do your round."
No, I wouldn't open the door for something.
But you're not Dutch.
Yeah, exactly.
You're immune to the night.
If I see it,
I have 4 more, and then I have like still a funny video, and we will wrap it up and we get a beer. The first one, the next one is social proof. It's actually you want to be part of a group. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I think when I was in uni, they showed this video 4 or 5 times to me, where there was a group, an experiment, and there was a group, and all of them were actors except one person. And you got a simple question: which stick is longest? And everybody who was an actor chose the shortest stick. And the person who was sitting there, he knew that wasn't the longest stick. He knew that the answer was wrong, but because everybody else did it, he did it as well.
But can I ask a question? When
Yeah.
you go back to the previous slide where you disguised as the firefighters.
Yes.
There's no way possible to check if you're showing an authentic car and you're coming in with the gear.
We didn't have firefighter gear. You have to do fire checks for buildings.
Yes.
So we said we do a fire check,
if you
so
are
we
in
just have it on close. And the name is correct. And the funny thing is, we put a number there from the local fire force, which was actually the number of our colleague who was waiting outside. So if you would call the number, it would go to my colleagues. They always do this in emails if they pretend to be somebody else. And it doesn't have to be firefighters, but it could also be media or something. There's always a number down, which you can call. Never call it. Always call the number you find on the internet. For example, with your bank. But you can verify this to come back to your question. To call the local fire force or whoever is supposed to do this check. If you not trust it, if you don't trust it, we came unannounced, which is already a red flag, right? I told you about social proof. Reciprocity, sorry, in Dutch it's an easier word, but it's like if I give you something, you give me something in return, like I talked to you before. Consistency, I sent out a lot of phishing emails. I just talked about SharePoint, but I also do a lot of phishing emails, which is a Teams notification that you get in your mailbox, saying, "Can you do this today?" And then you click and you have to log in fake thing. But just because it looks like Teams and you recognize it and it's consistent, you're more likely to press on the button. The last one is Unity. It's a bit newer. It's being part of a group. The best example is being part of a family, but also the things you believe in, for example. There was a cool experiment on the internet where they tried to do voice phishing at a company, and it was a woman calling, and they put a speaker next to her with sounds of a crying baby. And because there was sound of a crying baby, the other person on the line worked harder because the other person on the line wanted to make sure that this woman had time to take care of the baby instead of calling with the person on the line. So those are the persuasion principles. Any questions so far? No? Good. I have one last video. Yeah, some people recognize it already. And I'm curious in the end, which of these principles you recognize in here. I hope the sound works. I hope my internet works.
Do you want to compete Wi-Fi?
We can give him the password.
Exactly. If you can tell me the password, then I will show you. Then I will show you this cool video, right?
I don't have the password, no. You just have so much time left.
Almost reciprocity, I suppose.
I think this is also a good example of unity.
Exactly.
We all want this.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a 12 Platinum,
And what's his name?
Jameson.
Where's he go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
I had to go to senior high school
Oh, when did you graduate?
in 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my dad's name and then just a random number.
Okay. And you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Zoe. So like that password, you're gonna be Zoe and her number. And number 1.
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, great. So Jolie 6, 12, 95. Got
Password right now? No, I cannot do that.
But we all want to know what it is so we can tell you if it's strong or not.
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Okay, one is Tel Aviv. Yeah. 4, 6, 8. And then Israel. It's only 3, but it's only strong enough.
Ireland, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gemma.
What's your
So Gemma.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So like
What's a good Italian password?
my grandmother's name,
What's your grandmother's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah, right here on my password.
Mooi. Heel veel dingen die je voorkomen. En dan zou je misschien denken, oh, Americano. Oh, sorry. I always forget, my bad. So a lot of these principles came to play, and you might think, ooh, the Americans, it would never happen to me because I'm smarter than that. But there were some things where it would be like, okay, maybe if you...
Pretty sure there was a Dutch guy.
Yeah, maybe. So, which of these principles did you notice?
I guess definitely the liking part. Like either of you were very nice about everything. Like, oh, your dog's so cute. What was his name? You know, that kind of stuff.
Yes, for sure.
Unity, I think the guy was Italian or something, and she asked what's a good Italian password.
Yeah, very well. That one is quite hard to spot. So.
And pressure because they're on camera.
Exactly. So you want to be quick, and it needs to be. Huh?
And I think the first person they talked about, we were gonna tell you if your password is good enough. Or one person they said that. So I think it's reciprocity or reciprocity. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And the person was like, "Oh, I need to give my password. I cannot do that." And then exactly because of that, he gave it anyways. It was also very consistent. Like, "Oh no, keep asking questions, staying on the topic and not going off it." Any other one? I think we only use.
Authority maybe? Was it a camera crew or?
Yeah. Exactly, because it's a camera crew. Somebody for live television, and it's from the Jimmy Kimmel show, and it's a big thing in America. So people are willing to participate, and so you see that as well. This was only a small part of like normally I do a training with this, and we go design our own hacks now. How can we hack Competa IT? And most of the times we don't do the hacks, but we make it a competition. So for this, this is it. I want to thank you for your attention. I didn't mean, or I don't mean to scare you into thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna get hacked. I'm just trying to train, like, be safe, think, and if you think that somebody is trying to hack you or in any other way, take a step back and then assess the situation. You will be fine. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah?
Yeah, my question is related to this talk and also the previous talk about security.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these exploits are exploiting people's natural inclination to trust people.
Yes.
Right? But then when you think about it, like companies and like open source communities and society at large, like they don't work if we all just mistrusting each other the whole time.
No, so
like where should we draw the line? Like, when to trust people and when not to trust people? Because if we're constantly having to verify everyone that we're interacting with, like nothing would ever get done. Right? Like so, what's like the practical? Like where do we draw the line?
yeah, and that's what I said in between the talk. I don't mean to scare you. I don't mean for you to mistrust everybody, because most people have the good in their hearts and they don't try to fool you. But just when you aren't sure, when you feel like, this doesn't sound right, take a step back and verify. And there's no hard line. I cannot tell you, oh, do it when this happens or do it when that happens, because then we're still here tomorrow.
Yeah, but probably some patterns that you recognize that this is a phishing or this is a.
If they focus on these 7 points, those are the main points that they use in phishing. So if you recognize these very heavily, then take a step back. Other questions? Yeah?
Have you ever done the iconic hide this vest and ladder?
Sorry?
Have you ever done the iconic hide visible vest and a ladder?
I haven't done it with a ladder, but with a big box of materials and building stuff. So yeah, and unfortunately it works as well. We've also done it in, for example, a smaller company where everybody knew each other. I disguised myself as the person who gives water to the plants in the building, and that also works. So yes. Okay. Thank you.
One more question. Like thinking about, for example, the impersonation through email. I feel like there's a really good solution in the form of like PGP signing emails. But like in practice, it's like no one does this. That seems like a really easy solution to sort of mitigate some of these spear phishing email attacks. Like why doesn't this?
So who gives you the PGP key?
I mean, they have the public key, right? Like, so
Yes, but who informs you that's my public key?
You can have some trusted domain, right?
Okay, but I have this new key. It's over there. Right.
It's the example that I gave here, right?
For websites, right? You have like a hierarchy and how it works.
Yeah, it's called certificates authority. But
why can't we expand it for people's private email?
So you can state, oh, I don't have access to my work email at this moment. Can you send it to my private?
And that would be
yes, but those are these red flags Vince is talking about.
Exactly, and the example that you give, for example, if you were to do that, if you were to verify all the emails that you could get an email from, that's also not doable as a human being or as a company, knowing where the emails come from. Some people do, some companies do that when they need to be really strict with certain projects, but overall it's not manageable. And here's this exact same example. Oh yeah, we're from the fire force, and the new number, yeah, that's there on the card. Just call that.
The thing with this is it really helps if you have clear procedures on what you don't want. For example, if this firefighter, if people influence you to let them walk through your server room, stay with them. Because it's not a problem if they look at your server room. It's a problem when they plug something in. And a firefighter would not plug something in.
But like some public authorities have a way of verifying the documents. Like my university diploma has a little note at the bottom that you can verify the authenticity of this diploma by going to this terminal and plugging in some code. You can have a similar thing for like a fire department.
Yes.
But I don't think they have it.
But if I give you a fake diploma and I do the exact same thing with a fake domain on the bottom, and you verified it on the fake domain, you still think it's the right diploma.
We really need something like the Corona scanner, with an external service. So basically, Jimmy is the key.
Yeah, 2FA helps a lot already. And then sending necessary email secure. Yeah.
How is it like when you come into a building? It's like that your heart beats faster and that you.
Oh, of course. The first times when I did it at school, we were so nervous and like I haven't sweated that much in my whole life, I think.
Is it like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible? Or?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And the funny thing is, with most cybersecurity and hacking and stuff, every attack is different. For example, normally we can just come during the day, but lately we had to do this mystery guest attack in a bigger company where there's always somebody at the door who verifies who you are and stuff like that. So what we did is come at 6:30 in the morning and walk in with the cleaning people. And then the cleaning people opened the door and they went their way, and we jumped over the fences to get inside the company, and the rest of the day we could just walk around. So every approach is different, and every time you do it's very exciting and sometimes very scary as well, but when it works, yeah, it's also the adrenaline that...
So a follow-up question would be, have you ever been caught?
Yes, of course. For that, you always have a paper with you saying, hey, but even if you get caught, I get caught so often, and the first thing you do is try to talk yourself out of it. Most of the time that works. If you have a good story, it's fine. But sometimes, yeah, we had to show the paper. We even, some people didn't believe us and had to actually verify with the original people who we sent on the paper, which took like an hour or an hour and a half. But we never got caught and had police called and stuff like that. So,
did you like do acting like back in middle school or something? Or
Oh,
how was this?
I hear a career switch for curator.
yeah, that's awesome. No, I didn't do well. I voluntary acting, but not really acting classes. Just no. I didn't. I never did acting or something.
Okay.
And most of the people who do this study also have to do an attack, right? And they also don't do it. It's just a matter of getting over this this excitement that you have, and actually doing it.
And then staying in character.
Staying in character. But I must say, once you are inside and you did your first talk with the person, it's fine. Just exactly.
Well, it will probably work at any time in the company. Do you have the impression that it works in some type of companies more often than others?
Yes, for sure. This training I give to one of the bigger banks in the Netherlands, and how hard I would try if we were able to, I wouldn't get it. They have their own teams for that who are so specialized in testing these things. With my expertise, it wouldn't work. Thank you, everybody.
Vince, thank you very much. It's okay, I'm not mad. Disappointed, but it's okay. Johan, kan je de dingen pakken? And I would like
I
to...
can't understand that. What?
May you go and grab the things
Yeah,
from
I
behind
can.
the curtain.
Of
Okay,
course.
thank you very much. All right, I would like to get all the speakers here on stage with me. And then maybe Gina can take some pictures and Fernando. We also have a nice little present for you. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you all for presenting. We've absolutely learned much. Yeah. Yeah, just send them out. You're my assistant.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah, so, yeah, thank you all very much for coming and presenting to us about all these different kinds of topics. I thought, let's have some a broad arrangement of topics so that there's something for everybody's liking.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank y'all. Can I get another round of applause? And now we can help you get a nice cold beer. Yes, you're very nice.